The Bob Murphy Show, episode 328.
There's a tidal wave coming. What you gonna do?
Get ready for another episode of The Bob Murphy Show, the podcast promoting free markets, free minds, and grateful souls. It's your source for commentary and interviews conducted by a Christian and economist. Now here's your host, Bob Murphy.
Hey everybody, this is truly a fun one. I am talking with New York legend, comic David Angelo. If you haven't heard of him, I would suggest you first watch his comedy special, which of course I'll link to. This is bobmurphyshow.com/328. It's short. It's 24 minutes. And, you know, if you're not into him in the first 2 minutes, you don't need to continue. But he's got a very distinct, dry approach, style, persona, if you will. And I just think the guy's great. So I've been following him on Twitter for a while. He's also political, for those of you who are into that stuff. So I will also link, besides his comedy special, he's got something on his YouTube channel called Without Taxes, Who Will Pay for Roads, with 2 question marks. So my libertarian fans will like that. And he's also got what's called Brain Attack, The News Media is Lying to You, which I think you'll like as well. So I'll link to those at the show notes page. And also, he did ask me to mention he does have his own line of razors. It's not a joke. He really does. And that's at westernrazor.com, which, of course, I will also link to at the show notes page. So I would suggest, like I say, listen to him a bit first, see if you like his comedy, and then my interview with him will make more sense. But if you don't care and you want to just listen to the interview, I ask him, how to get into comedy, that kind of stuff. And if that interests you as well, then this one's for you. Without further ado, here is my discussion with New York legend David Angelo. David, welcome to the Bob Murphy Show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Spoken like a true stand-up. So let's just jump right in. As listeners know, some kids want to grow up to be firemen, some want to be police officers, astronauts. I think if I wasn't afraid of rejection, I would be a stand-up comedian. So can you tell us, how did you, from a young age, did you say, I got to do this, or how did that happen?
Oh, not from a young age. I don't think I knew it existed really, but I also didn't think really until I was in maybe college that you could even do it. I mean, it just seemed like, well, that's not a thing you do. That's something you...
Can I stop you though? Do you mean obviously you must have known who George Carlin was and Richard Pryor. You just mean that was like saying I play for the Yankees and come on.
Well, yeah, it's okay, there's 2 names and they're the ones that get mentioned for the last 40 years. It's like saying I want to be Kim Kardashian when I grow up. It's like, all right, I mean, I guess, but those are celebrities.
Okay, yeah, right. I'm not saying, I'm just clarifying what you meant. Okay.
Right. But it's sort of it just seemed like I want to be a celebrity is basically the equivalent of saying I want to be a stand-up. Mm-hmm. So I was just sort of didn't think of that as a even viable career path. Sure. And of course, it turned out not really to be, but but it's still something. I went down that path, and after I left school, and the stakes are low. I think everyone's always like, "Oh, I want to try that." At the beginning levels, people are so terrible that even if you're bad, they're beyond bad. If you go to an open mic with any kind of trepidation or anything like that, if you spend 10 minutes at an open mic in any city, you will be like, oh, I could easily do what they're doing. Yeah, I don't know whether I could be a famous person yet, but I could get on stage here in Louisville, Kentucky, and do 10 minutes.
So I went to NYU for my grad work, and as I was there, this was between '98 and 2003, and I went to Greenwich Village, whatever, one of those kind of underground comedy, literally you kind of walk downstairs to get into it, on one of those side streets there, and I paid for it wasn't even open mic or something. These were professional, and they were not that funny. And I was sitting in the front, and I realized in retrospect I was kind of the a-hole in the crowd because I wasn't laughing. I was really underwhelmed because it was like a little kid getting to go to a baseball game, and then there's the strike or something. I mean, I can't even come up with an analogy, but I was really disappointed, and I think the comedians picked up on that, and they were just all coming at me, and that just made me more pissed off. It was not a good. I don't even know what happened. I walked out of there and I was bewildered. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of tough. Yeah, it used to be. I think people have more access to stand up now, where they're kind of used to seeing a gajillion clips all the time. But like in the '90s, you might have heard some albums, but that would have been like the best material these guys had. Like the really good comics, their really best material. And so like every time you go into the club, it's just like, I mean, there are some good clubs where, okay, they're like everyone here is really good, but the bar is really low until you get to the top of the pyramid. Then it gets really crazy. But the barrier to entry is just, are you willing to do it? And
so I mean, is it the kind of thing, if someone listening is like, I mean, not to be stereotypical, like a waiter or something in a fairly big city who always thought like, oh, it'd be so amazing, but no, I'm not. Like they could just try it a couple, like work on some material and go to an open mic and see, like, is that a viable thing? And you can, or is it kind of like you got to go all in to really give it a chance?
No, I mean, you can try. And if you do it, like, let's say you try 3 or 4 times and you think, oh, well, it was working. I got like these people laughed. I got a little bit better my 4th time versus my 1st time. Then you could say like, all right, but ultimately comedy is still a nighttime sport. So you're going to have like a day job until you need to travel to do, until you're like a really big time person. Okay. So you could kind of do it part-time, but still as aggressively as anybody, even if you had a day job. I would just say to people, like, go to an open mic to watch. Like, don't even go up like you're gonna go that night. Just go watch one night, and then you'll be like, oh my God, I could easily do this. And I mean, I'm saying that like literally anybody, because that's what it's just it's not as intimidating as you think at the beginning level.
Okay, so can you tell us more? How did you? So let me just mention, like in preparation for this, I went and because I've like followed you on Twitter and I've seen some of your stuff, and then I watched your special, which I'll we'll get to that and you can promote it and talk about how that came to be. But I mean, you're like a professional. Like there was one, let me see. I don't even know if it was on your channel or some of a fan uploaded it, but you get up there and it just like you just took over the room. Like everybody was lackluster, and you just from your demeanor you could just tell like, oh, this is a professional. He doesn't care what this crowd does, and like the crowd instantly responded to that or something. I don't know. So how did you? Do you get the sense of what I'm saying, and like how do you get to that level where?
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, I think people really want, when they're out in a live show, they just want to see someone who's confident. They don't even really want to see someone. They don't need like a funny joke necessarily. It's like, is this guy confident? And then basically telling jokes is a way to like, it's like road signs on this journey to confidence. It's like, oh, well, that was funny, so he's confident. Like that's all it kind of is. And so if you're confident, then that's when people start to be like, oh, okay, now we're having fun. That's like kind of the ultimate thing. And you don't have to be, you can be like a weirdo, but as long as you're confident, whatever you're doing, it doesn't have to be like bravado necessarily. Then everyone's like, oh, we're having a good time. And that's kind of like what people actually really want to see, I think, more than even jokes, is just like, there's someone who looks like they have something figured out.
Yeah. I mean, I get you're trying to partly be a little bit funny, but it's that I think you nailed it. Like it really is. Because I've seen guys, as you know, I'm an economist, so I go to these things, and there's actually a lot of good public speakers that make the circuit in this little niche that I'm in. And one guy, he got up and he always opens with jokes, like actual, guy walking to a bar type, a little bit more clever than that, but that's what he's doing. And one of them, he screwed up the punchline, and the crowd was just like, they didn't know what to do. And then he just told the punchline again correctly, and then everyone died because like they knew he was telling a joke, and they so much wanted him to succeed because he was just had such confidence. And then even though he actually messed the joke, I mean, so I'm just saying that was an extreme example of what you're saying, where like the crowd, if it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you just get up there and know I'm not going to bomb, then you don't. But if you think I might bomb, they kind of sense the fear and, this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, then they get upset. So it's like
Mm.
there's like stage fright this direction, but then the crowd has their own like fright when they're like, "Oh my god, is what's going to happen here?" So like you can just get into a cycle where that's where
Yeah.
it goes really bad, but usually that doesn't
So
happen too much.
apropos of that, I had heard this adage that a real comedian can't take chances until he bombs and just gets that out of the system. Is that true? Like, did that happen with you, or
Um,
hey, have you heard that, or is that something I just made up?
no, I've never heard that. But
Oh
like
wow, okay.
I mean, I don't know. I'm probably out of the loop, but like you'd have some bad times maybe, but I think if you're just like having fun, it's hard to really bomb, even if things aren't
Mm-hmm.
working. It's only when you're like in a bad mood and or like something is so off with like the venue or something. That's when it can
Mm.
just turn into a disaster. But I don't know. I never really feel like I learned anything from that, and I don't know. It also doesn't happen that much. Maybe I just don't care. I think other
Mm-hmm.
people have more. I could probably do terrible on stage and then walk off and then not realize it because I'm just like, whatever, that's what it was. So I'm not as hung up on it. But maybe that's a thing other people are more concerned with.
I mean, I guess maybe that's a question: is are you like you certainly come off like your shtick is I'm very clever, and whether you folks laugh at this or not, I don't care because I
Oh
amuse
yeah,
myself.
I'm
So I'm
so
saying, is
past
that
laughs. Yeah,
yeah,
well, that laughs are for like they're for the lesser comedians. I'm
right?
just yeah.
But
No,
I'm
I don't.
like saying, is that actually somewhat true, and that's why actually you can't bomb because hey, I had fun. I thought my jokes were funny, and if they didn't get it, too bad for them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're happy, then what's the problem? Like maybe.
You're getting paid, all right.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, even if you do a great job, there'll be one person who hates you. So if
right?
it's like, all right, well, now if 80% of them hate me, but I still feel like I did okay, then what do I care? Like it doesn't. I
Yeah.
don't know about the math of it.
Okay. Uh, so some standard question here, like when you are deciding on you distill down the persona you want to be on stage. Like, do you have certain influences? Like, oh yeah, I love the way this guy does that. I'm gonna, or is it?
Um, I don't. I don't really watch that much comedy. I feel like sometimes you'll see stuff and you like, oh, the way they were doing it was great. But then you sort of just kind of get into this thing where you kind of just know, like, I know what this will do with a crowd. I know if I say
Mm-hmm.
this way or do this whatever way, and ultimately it's like as long as you're just whatever you're doing to make you the most comfortable, that's what's going to get like the best reaction. So it's not like someone else's style might be their thing, but however it is where you're like, I don't care if you laugh at this point, that being that energy, sending that out makes everybody, it almost makes it easier to do it. So that's like I don't really pick it up from other people. It's more just
Mm-hmm.
like, what can I do to make my life easier?
Right.
Comedy's like just about how can you monetize laziness? I think it's like, I just want to work an hour a week.
Okay, so maybe now is a good time for me to ask you. So the recent special that you released, like how do you get to the point? Like how does that happen? You're doing your material, then at some point, do you just say I want to do this, or does someone approach you, or how does that happen?
um, no, well, no, I just wanted to do it myself. I had been working on a sitcom for like 2 years with where I was trying to get this show on TV, and I'm working with the network and I'm doing all this stuff, and it was so much. It wasn't necessarily that it was tedious working with the network. It was just it took forever, and I hated that like how slow the process was because it made it not fun anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it took like all the like we started in 2021 and then like just ended last month, and um it was just so slow and I hated that. So then I wanted to do a special, and everyone was kind of doing their own specials at this point now. And so I just did it. I hired the crew and I shot it myself, and I'm really happy with it. And I had total control over it. I didn't have to ask anybody to do anything. I didn't have to get permission for anything. I just like did whatever I wanted. And I think that's like the way forward. And that's just what people are doing now. It's almost like if you get like a huge money deal from Netflix or something, it makes sense. But otherwise, okay, I could sell a thing to Amazon and maybe they'll give me $50,000 or something, but then nobody watches it because it's behind like some subscription service.
Mm-hmm.
And this way, it's just like, all right, it's on YouTube, anyone can see it, and it's just more fun to do it. I was like in charge from start to finish, and I'm like happy with it. I mean, I feel like I'm done with it now, and I'm moving on. But it was a good time, and I hope everyone watches it. New York, it's called New York Legend, and it's on YouTube, and it's
Yeah.
short. It's only like 25 minutes. I like comedy, but I can't stand watching people like an hour special. Like I don't know how people get through that. Like even someone I really like, it's too long to sit and watch stand up on the TV, I think. So I try to make it a little shorter. And I don't know, I think it's a good length.
Yeah, I thought it was good, and that was one question I had for you is the you being in the club, the word, the main footage of you performing, was that actual, like, were you on the stage longer and you just grabbed the amount of material, or was that actually mostly the act you did for those people live that night?
I think I did like 40 minutes and I cut the whole special is like 25 minutes, but only maybe 20 or 19 even on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably shot 40 minutes. So I cut it in half. I cut some stuff out that's, I probably could have left it in, but I just didn't want it to go too long. I think it's the length of like a sitcom basically, and I think
Right.
that's like the length you want to watch comedy in. I don't think people, and I try to cut it up so if you watch the special, there's like it goes to different scenes. Like I'm in
Yeah.
a limo, I'm doing like stuff at a different location. I'm just trying to make it a little more like TV show. So I just had to edit that down to what I think is the best way to watch what I could put out. I just didn't want people to think this is too long. I never wanted that to enter their mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think you definitely pulled that off because yeah, I was hungry for more, and then I was going to ask you too that the constant splicing back to you in the limo driving around, making observations, often self-deprecating about New York, like that was arguably funnier than the other stuff. They were just such different styles, so just going back and forth was good. If you got sick of one type of humor, then boom, you hit him with the other one. It was good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just like coming out of TV. And again, I mean, I mostly work in television, so like the idea was there's a couple specials I've seen where okay, they can hold me for 40 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm always by the end I'm like, thank God this is finally over. Like it doesn't matter how funny it is. And I just wanted to like figure out a way in taking what I know about TV to put it into the special and make it a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more like a movie so you could like have different paces and break up the monotony of it a little bit. So I don't know. Let me know. What do they say? Hit, leave a comment. Leave a comment underneath, like and subscribe. Let me
Yes,
know
sir.
your feedback. You're supposed to do this is called a call to action. You're supposed to say, you guys need to hey friends, you want to engage, direct eye contact. Hey friends, go watch New York Legend on YouTube. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. That's how you that's how you do it in the .com era.
Hang on, I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
So you've alluded a couple of times to the fact that you do writing. So can you talk about that aspect? Like, what is that? How, is that easier than like you explore more, or what's you don't get as much of a thrill from the immediate reaction?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're a TV writer, it's kind of just like it's sort of it's kind of a backhanded thing in show business where they're just like, look, the network will be like, we like you, we think you're hilarious, or we think you're hilarious. All your ideas are good. We just don't like you saying them. So we need you to if you could write those down, we'll give them to these other people. So that's just kind of been my experience. I mostly work in like late night talk shows, and I do like I was working on a sitcom, I sold this sitcom to a network, and I thought I could make it like, okay, here's like a new show, but it got, they could only pick one, and they picked a new Dennis Leary. It's something with Dennis Leary. He plays an army guy. That's the one that beat me. So,
Mm-hmm.
that was my foray into sitcom. I didn't quite make it across the finish line,
Now,
but
now, did someone literally tell you that, or like you just can put two and two together and you can understand how scarcity works and you can see that got greenlit, or you know what I mean?
yeah, I mean that's what they were like. We have one spot
Uh,
on our time slot here,
okay.
and then in the you can read Variety, and it's like they picked up Dennis Leary's new sitcom.
Now,
Which
do you have a
fair enough,
sense?
fair enough.
Yeah. Do you have a sense? Like, are there 9 other people walking around saying, "I was vying for that slot and Dennis O'Leary got it over me"? Like,
Oh, it probably wasn't me and just me and him. There were probably a few more, but it's not like a ton.
mm-hmm,
And they, because this was like the final stage of like um, them deciding, where it's like the head of the network deciding.
right,
Usually, you'll get like cut down at a failure. Usually comes a lot
right.
quicker in show business. So like the
And I mean, and that's more efficient, not to be obnoxious, but right, because you wouldn't want 30 different shows all being having their pilots all filmed and everything, and then
yeah.
only one gets picked. Like that seems kind of wasteful. Like yeah, abort the bad idea or what the networks think is a bad idea earlier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just took like 2 years. That's why
Uh-huh.
it wasn't so early for in my case. But like, um, it was kind of an interesting process and stuff. So I mean, TV is kind of fun, but it's so there's no real system to it. It's you need to be at peace with the idea that like whatever anything can happen, and don't take it personal. It's sort of
Mm-hmm.
like if you're a sensitive person, it's not the right industry. I don't think.
Right. So what? I mean, can you shop that around and tweak it, or is it like no? There was a window where it would have worked, and now.
I guess in theory, it's been 2 years. I'm kind of like bored. I'm
Mm-hmm.
moving on. And one of the things I did with the special was it made me realize like I think I could shoot a movie because the special's like 30 minutes and I did it in like 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I have multiple locations. And I'm like, I bet I could make a movie in like 2 weeks in New York. So now that's something I'm trying to do more. Just if I can write that and then shoot it in the fall, then I'll be happy with a project for this year. Um, so that's kind of more what I'm focused on. I don't want to keep dragging around this
Right.
like I've just been with it for 2 years. I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of tired of it.
When you say movie, you mean like starring you and you just have more people, or like you're writing a script and you might cast other people and you're just the writer and director and.
Yeah, I mean, if I can get if I can get someone better than me, which is it's not a high bar, but if I can get someone better than me, then I'll put them in it. But otherwise, I would be in it. But I just think it was a fun process, and like the whole the, one thing is like the more you do something, you kind of realize it's not that hard. I think people
Mm-hmm.
build up um, these hurdles in their mind for like anything, so they kind of just sit in a room and they don't really do anything with their lives. And then you think, oh, I could have done that. And I just remember like my experience early on when I think it was in junior high, and I was afraid to do the science fair. There
Mm-hmm.
was a science fair, and you could enter it. And I was like, I'm too stupid to do the science. I can't go do the science fair because you get like a prize or something. And then and I was expecting like Jurassic Park kind of projects in here.
Right.
And then I went, and it was like these are the stupidest. Like I couldn't believe how lame these projects were. And then I said, I psyched myself out of this science fair. I should have just done it. And so now that's kind of like moving forward. I've just been like, I'll just do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But usually things aren't that hard. So now I'm like, oh, I could make a movie. Whereas before I was thinking I would have to sell a script to somebody who would make
Mm-hmm.
it for me, and like go through that process. And now I'm thinking I can just do it. I mean, it's you have to have money. You have to be able to spend money to like go do it and be at peace with it if it doesn't earn the money back.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like there's not really like a much risk, like you can just do it. You can just do stuff. It's amazing.
Right. And I imagine now, like with the cameras and even just being able to hire freelance people and stuff, like for whatever, like a given amount of money spent, the quality of the film you could make now is so much better than 20 years ago.
I mean, I don't want to like make it sound like I'm just talking up the special, but you've seen the special. My special, the visuals on my special, Like that looks so much better than anything HBO,
Oh
even
yeah.
to this day, has ever produced for a comedy special. Like that, it looks amazing. There's drone shots, like the credits at the end. I don't know if you stayed that long, but like there's this shot at the end with the credits. It's like unbelievable what they're doing. Like you couldn't have done any of this stuff 15, 20 years ago. I mean, and certainly not further back, but like it still costs money. You still need a guy there to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the gear is, you don't need cranes, you don't need these gigantic lights anymore, so it's the cost of actually making has gone down. And if you watch the visual quality of the special, that's where I'm like, oh, I could, this is like a movie, like I could, that's why
Mm-hmm.
I think I could do it. A lot of people are putting out specials now where it's just like their handy cam and they're on the
Right.
stage and it's just they're talking and it looks awful, but like, the quality doesn't matter that much. But I just wanted it to look cool, so I did, and then that made me think, all right, we can do more than that.
Yeah, and you're right, and you did a good job of. What am I trying to say? It looked like you had a studio behind you, because yeah, that's like what you were doing was like the old school HBO specials where the comedian's backstage and doing some bit about, oh, I'm nervous and I'm eating all the cashews and oh no, and then goes out because they announce his name, and yeah, so that like that is a signal to you that, oh yeah, they got cameras all set up behind, this is all a big production.
Yeah, and I mean, I
And
had
you
the
had a limo.
car.
You're an important guy. You're driving around in a limo.
I got a drone flying through Manhattan. Like it's crazy. Like, and that limo was so expensive. Like if you rent a limo, it's like $90 basically. But because I wanted that old one,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a lot of money, and then it broke down, and so I had to bring it back, which they gave me. They were like, okay, we'll give you another day with the limo, but I had to bring all the guys back. I had to bring all the
Mm-hmm.
gear back, so it ended up being so expensive because I wanted that old 1989 Lincoln Town car, which is like the classy. That to me, that's what like success was in New York.
Mm-hmm.
That car. I don't know if people remember like New York before SUVs took over all the VIP transport. They were in that limo, and so I was like, "That's the limo I need to have."
Well, you just walked into another question I wanted to ask you. So you actually still live in New York or nearby?
Yeah, I'm still in New York. I kind of, it is what it is. I would like to leave, but it's when you work in show business,
Mm-hmm.
it's like New York or LA, and I mean, that's kind of what am I going to trade one for the other at this point? It's like, okay, I mean, this is where it is, but I don't love it that much anymore, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, is it just obvious stuff like, I mean, I know a bunch of right wing people complain about the lockdown and how draconian and that's why they left. But is it more than just that kind of stuff?
The lockdown was amazing. I loved the lockdown because it was like quiet. Actually, the city smelled better. Like it was, you could walk around. There was no like the streets were empty. It was beautiful. I wish we locked down again. What I don't like is like just the chaos, how expensive it is. I'm thankful now I'm in a relatively quiet apartment, but I've moved 5 times since 2020 because of noise or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's always been a reason why I had to move. It's always been involuntary. And that's the stuff that starts to be like, okay, I would just love to be. You start to get the Ted Kaczynski kind of thinking of like, give me the shed in the woods somewhere, just so I don't have to hear like a million different stereos. I don't want to like, or like just screaming from neighbors, everything you could possibly imagine. I've been through it here. But that's the thing, that's the beauty of this city.
Okay, let's transition into, so you can be political, and like, do you do like Fox shows or that kind of thing? Like, are you on that circuit where somewhat dip your toe in?
I go on Greg Gutfeld's show mostly. I sell my razors. I have a razor company,
Okay.
Western Razor,
What sets your razor apart?
American made,
Oh.
made in America, and huge financial calamity for me, but good for you.
Right,
I
right.
mean, it's much easier. I mean, we're competitively priced. It's just my margins are tiny, so I've been trying to figure out ways to like work that out a little bit better. But the products are super good. They sell really well, and I go on Gutfeld all the time, and I'll be like, Western Razor, all this stuff, and that resonates with that crowd, I think, because it's made in America,
Mm-hmm.
and razor companies are somehow got really political. Like when I started this, it was not, no one linked razors in politics, and now that became like this weird like flashpoint, like Gillette and that
Was it
guy
Jeremy
from yeah
Boring? Right,
yeah, which I can't stand. Like I don't want to be like, I mean, I don't want to start a feud on
right, right.
your show here, but like,
Oh, it'd be awesome for me, but yeah, I won't push you to do that.
I mean, he was making these. He's just buying them in China. He's reselling Chinese razors, and he's doing it as like this big patriotic move. And I couldn't believe that like that caught on so well. I don't know what his sales are like, to be honest, what he's doing now, but it blew up when it came out, and I was kind of shocked by that. But made in America, everything we sell. This hat, you want to buy a hat? They're made in
Mm-hmm.
America. Because I figured, you know what, everyone always says that, like you got to stop doing the globalization, got to stop offshoring this and that. So I was like, let me just see if it's possible, because this is a product that would save people money because of the it's safety razors, so a replacement blade is only like 10 cents. So it's like, here's a product made in America that could save you money. Will people buy it? And that's been sort of like the experiment of it for the past like 10 years almost.
Okay, well, good. Now Gutfield's show, he's legitimately funny. Like I'm saying, like there's been a trend, I guess, starting with the Daily Show at least, of political commentary that's funny, and then of course the people with the big shows. But I mean, Gutfield's show, like he opens up almost with a string of jokes.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely puts like the effort into it. It's funny about that shows, they have no staff. Like they have no, like if you go to the Tonight Show, there's 100 people working there.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go to Gutfeld, there's like 15. And it's so funny how much fewer people they have. And then there's still, um, I don't know what the ratings are really, but I know they do really well. And I think they might be number one in the broadcast ratings. So it's just kind of funny how much more they can like squeeze out of like a much smaller staff is really funny.
Can I ask you, circling back, because I meant to ask you the writers stuff. So, what is the dynamic there? You said, somewhat tongue in cheek that, oh yeah, they say, oh yeah, David, we think you're funny, but we'd rather the jokes come out of somebody else's mouth. So you go back there and you write them down, and we'll get. So I mean, I suppose in a sense, there, like in music, that's not a big deal, right? Like that. Oh yeah, there's people that are just known as songwriters, and then the other people because they look a certain way. Is it like does that carry over like among writers? Like, do you guys have a hierarchy and who, like, oh yeah, even though the public might not know their names very well, but like, is there like a pantheon of comedy writers?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, usually these days they kind of get out on camera a little bit more, or
Mm-hmm.
everyone's doing like their own thing. It's very rare you have a kind of a shy comedy writer who's really renowned. I'm trying to think of who that would be like in I mean, I hate that I'm blanking on it. I'll think of something later, but yeah, there are definitely people where you're like, oh yeah, that's they get hired. Like Robert Smigel for years was always like
Mm-hmm.
the go-to guy if you wanted a really funny late night thing. Um, so there's still people that are they're always working, and then there's people who they kind of come in and out. Maybe that's the hierarchy, is just who's like in demand like that. But yeah, I mean, it's like its own lane. It's cool. It's less pressure, so that's the upside, I guess. It's
Right.
like you don't have to go out and I kind of feel like fame in general is just sort of a negative thing more and more these days. Anyways, it's like if you can kind of stay anonymous, like all right, I go on Fox and I get recognized sometimes, but it's such a like specific type of person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like especially if I'm in Manhattan here, it's like maybe like every couple months someone recognizes me on the street. But
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it'd be more if I went to like a red state or something. I don't know, but like it's kind of comfortable. But I have famous friends who they're just like inundated all the time, and at some point you think like that's like that's you need a you know that's why they get a premium on their income kind of as a celebrity. It's like it's a kind of a lot to deal with.
Yeah. The Beatles apparently, I don't know which one, probably John or Paul, what said everybody
John was
thinks
the one that got killed.
okay.
Yeah,
And
That was
yes.
John, and that
Okay.
was directly a result of his fame.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
If it was John saying the quote I said, it would be before he was killed, I imagine. And apparently he or Paul or somebody else said, everybody thinks they want to be rich and famous. Trust us, you just want to be rich.
Yes, I've never heard that, but that's exactly it. I
Okay.
don't think I mean there are some people who really revel in that. But I don't think most people are. I think at the end of the day, you just want to be able to sit down in a restaurant and
Mm-hmm.
not have like people come up to you and do all this stuff.
Right.
It just seems
I mean,
tedious.
it's probably, I'm sure there's a trade off. Like maybe you do appreciate every once in a while someone coming up like at an airport or something. Oh, Mr. Angelo, I really like what you're doing. But yeah, if it's a kind
Yeah,
of thing
I'm
you
at the
can't leave your
perfect level.
house.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm at the perfect level where statistically 0% of the world knows who I am. But like every now and then it's like, oh, here's somebody. So it's like, okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of cool. But I think it would be crazy if you're really famous. It's really maddening. That's why those people they go nuts all the time, and everyone thinks like, oh, what happened to them? It's like it's really wild being famous. Like you may see a famous person on the street and you have some interaction with it, and whatever that is, and they have that every 10 minutes, every
Right.
100 yards they walk, they have to have that interaction.
Right.
That's
Somebody, yeah, I was at this restaurant and, Alec Baldwin walked in. And meanwhile, anytime he goes to a restaurant, everyone there is thinking that.
right.
Yeah. One time in New York City, I was sitting on a park bench and this guy was walking by and he had two very attractive women, like they weren't like locked arms, but, walking briskly. And he was
And that was
surprisingly,
Jeffrey Epstein.
well, no, but he was short, and that's why it caught my eye, And then I looked, and I
Woody
realized it
Allen.
was Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller, love it. Yep. And see, he was spotted.
Mm-hmm.
He
And
was
I tell that
probably
story to this day, and I don't think he's going around saying one time I caught Bob Murphy before he made it big in economics. He clarifies, and people say, "Oh, before Murphy was big." And
yeah.
so
He could be.
it could be.
I'll ask him next time I see Ben. I like to do that when I see Ben. When I talk.
Yeah. So how did you like? Let's jump in and talk about your road video, and then we can step back and talk about the big implications of it. So you had sent me this video about you talking about the roads. I like that because I don't know if you know this, David, but amongst libertarian free market types, the roads is like a punchline because everyone always says, "What about the roads?"
Yes.
But I liked your response was you actually, I mean, besides that, it was funny, like, the way you did it, it was clever, but your actual substantive response was pretty good. I mean, so do you want to recapitulate? And if you forget to mention the one point I really liked, I'll bring it up again.
Yeah, maybe you should go on this because I haven't watched this video in a while.
So fair enough. Look at that's like the joke where the driver, like if the physicist is giving talks and his driver's with him, and then one time the physicist lets the driver get up and give the talk because he's heard it so much, and then someone asks a really tough question. He goes, "You know what? That's such an easy question. I'm gonna let my driver answer that."
Nice.
So, yeah, you said something along the lines of governments love to have roads because it's a very tangible, concrete, no pun intended, thing that they do, and they can point to that and go, "Oh, you need us because the roads." And whereas I had always gone the other way and said everyone bitches about the roads all the time. Like you'd think their go-to accomplishment would be something that wouldn't be in total disrepair, but you actually took it at face value and just said, "Okay, yeah, roads are good, great, and that's the one thing. And look at how much of the budget that is." And you just showed,
yes, it's
like,
very
what a little,
small.
yeah.
And that's actually that's like a pre-Trump commentary. I don't think it used to be when people would complain about the government or whatever it was, that was like the conditioned response from somebody would be like, well, don't you care about roads? Like that
Mm-hmm.
was like the conditioned, we were all trained in, as a society to do that response. Now I haven't heard that in ages, because now anything talks about is Trump now, in any regard to anything related to the government. Like, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I don't know what the libertarian movement really has been doing lately, because all you hear about is Trump. It's just Trump top to bottom. But yeah, that's my view on roads. Is they just
Mm-hmm.
need they need something that they deliver, because otherwise there's nothing there. Like what do you get? Like if you look at all the grants they get, it's just it's madness, because you never see any of this stuff.
It's ironic you brought the Libertarian Party just had their convention. I wasn't there, but I was trolling them via Twitter. Um, they just had their convention and they invited Trump to come, and he came and said to their faces, "You guys should all vote for me." And then some people started booing him, and he said, "Or you can continue to be losers and get 3%." I'm not gonna do my Trump,
Yeah,
and he said it right to their face. Like I just thought this guy is something else. And so even the libertarians at their convention was Trump was the talk of the town. So
yeah.
and I'm not
He,
saying they were wrong. I understand why they invited him, because yeah, why wouldn't you? And they get all this press coverage. So
right.
let me ask you, being someone in New York City, particularly in show business, it really does seem like Trump made the average liberal in show business lose their mind. And can you comment on that? I'm not just saying I disagree with them politically. I mean, they really just lost it, it seems to me.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if it's limited to show business, because I talk to a lot of people. I mean, maybe just because I'm in New York or whatever, but
Oh no, it's
I
not,
don't.
I'm not saying it's limited to show, but I just meant because that's like what your
Right.
working environment.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I think just in general, like
Mm-hmm.
people, it's like a mental break. I don't know what happened. Nobody could have any kind of. There were so many disconnected logical lines of thought with the Russia stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like just from the whole time of the Russia thing. And I've kind of pivoted to. I used to be critical of the government and whatever, and now I'm more. It's the media that like drives me absolutely crazy, and I think it's just like the way that they can influence the way people think is kind of shocking. And I didn't realize it. Maybe they've been doing it for a long time, but since Trump, it's like you get the same, you notice it because it'll be the same phrases, the same words that are
Mm-hmm.
just said. And that's where I'm like, this is all just cultish. This is a mind control. This is conditioning. The just phrases, like whenever you hear everything, it became our democracy. You're always hearing about
Mm-hmm.
democracy. They're shoehorning that into every sentence now. Whereas nobody 5, 10 years ago, nobody ever said our democracy like it was this thing that, and I'm sure they have a canned response for why that is, which is, well, January 6th, there was an insurrection, like there's always this like canned language. And that has, however that's disseminated through whatever forms of media. But that's where you have to keep feeding people all this stuff. And then their brain, the fuse is short out, because they're just like, none of this is really making any sense. Like you have this situation with um, the Russia thing, which you had to have been totally captive to like the messaging of that to believe it, and they strung everyone along for years,
Mm-hmm.
and that just broke their psyche. I think. I mean, they were just like it was mine. That was like crazy. I don't know how that happened. Everyone was just like it was like a low blood sugar as a society or something. They just somehow were able to like be duped.
I mean, is it as open and shut or as simple as just saying they were absolutely certain Hillary Clinton was going to win, and then when she lost to Trump, it like they couldn't deal with it, and to say, well, there must have been cheating, and yes, Putin. Like in other words, given what they thought the world was the day before the election, it would take some cataclysmic, man behind the curtain thing to.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. It's like
Mhm.
it was that it started off with denial. So you're in the grieving process with the Hillary Clinton loss. But the media, you never got past the denial phase. You got a little bit denial, anger kind of denial thing. And that's where they were stuck for years, because the media just kept feeding them. And the
Mhm.
media, by the way, there is a show on my YouTube channel. It's called Brain Attack. And I clearly prove it's not my theory or anything. I prove to you, I lay out all the documentary evidence that the media knew that the Russia thing was fake while they were talking about it. I mean,
Okay.
because now we know, because we didn't have all the evidence at the time, but now we have the emails they had,
Mm-hmm.
and it's clear that they knew they were lying. And if you watch that video, it's
So
that's like totally
it's your video on your YouTube channel called Brain Attack.
yes.
Okay. Yes, I'll
And
obviously link that, folks.
because I'm so tired of people that, there's a problem on the right where people are just spouting off a lot, and you have a lot of these right wing people who get popular in their right wing ecosphere. Candace Owens and there's some other guy I can't stand. What's his name? But
I hope not Bob Murphy.
yes. Do you know him?
Not well, professionally.
No, but there's like they have a tendency to go kind of a little kooky too. But so I didn't want to do anything where it's like any kind of theorizing or anything like that. I was like, I will prove to you, I know that they were lying, and I go through it and I pull out all these clips and these documents, and it's irrefutable. Like that's the element of it. And so that whole process where then the media is just stoking them because they need to, for I don't know how they're captured. I was just thinking about this earlier because CNN has 83,000 viewers in prime time. I don't know how they're making money. I mean, that's like an extremely low amount of viewers. Like YouTube channels have more than that, and they maybe generate, I don't know, like $3 million in revenue a year. And so how is CNN paying its bills? There is like a mystery to the economics of like that whole like media ecosphere that I would love to learn about, but I'm sure there's so many shell companies, it's impossible to ever like investigate it. But I don't know what's going on with them, but they have definitely been like ruining people's brains for a long time, but they really went into overdrive. And that's why you got all this kind of emotional, distraught people in the last, I guess it's been 8 years now.
Well, last question I have for you is, can you just speak to, have you, so your views would not be popular among plenty of people, let's say in show business. Like, have you like been censoring yourself, or is whatever it is, what it is? Or I'm just curious if you have ever faced any of those qualms.
Yeah, I mean, I had more trouble, I think, when the Russia thing was happening, because I don't really defend Trump, and I'm really critical of him on a lot of things. But when Russia stuff was happening, I was really vocal about how that was all fake. And in the moment, people were really emotional about that topic. And so me attacking the media kind of read like I was being pro-Trump.
Right,
and that really like caused a lot of people to turn against me. And then the fact that, like, if you look back at everything I said, it's all completely right. And now it's like, in the hindsight and whatever your Mueller reports or whatever you need to come out with to rationalize it. But I didn't say anything crazy, but because the emotional state at the time, I think people just associate me with this kind of like I was anti-resistance or something. And so that was like the problem I had to overcome. But there's really nothing you're going to dig up on me politically where I'm like, oh, he had like this crazy view, or whatever. I don't really talk about any kind of social things or stuff like that. I do work in Hollywood. I'm not like who's that guy, Matt Walsh or whatever, like this hardcore dude. So I'm not like it's hard for them to point to anything I've done that they would say that's a reason to cut ties. It's just that there was kind of an emotional feeling during those first 3 Trump years that I wasn't like playing ball. And I think that's maybe something that harmed me a little bit, but I mean, whatever, it is what it is. I felt like I was doing what I could to help everybody else. And I think it played out where everything I said held up, whereas everything, you can't find an episode of, CNN aired for 24 hours a day for 3 years. You can't find one episode of CNN that holds any like that has aged well at all. Like they're all crazy. If you go back and watch an episode of any show on MSNBC or CNN from 2018, like they're all just insanity. Whereas you can't go back and find anything of mine that's crazy. Like it everything I said is still relevant. Like, I mean, I'm not, that's why I kind of am able to operate in both worlds. I can do the Gutfeld and the Hollywood, because I'm just kind of saying, like, this is what's real. I know it's uncomfortable sometimes, but you know, and if I stay out of the social stuff, it's like, that's the real danger, I think, is if you start to get into that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're a New York legend, so it'd be hard for them to blackball you on that score.
Yeah, I'm a New York legend. YouTube.com. Western Razor. I'm such a shill. I'm always selling everything.
And I like it. Well, I am wrapping up at this point, so I was going to give you the opportunity. So yes, westernrazor.com is where they can go. Remind me, the blades are made where? Was it in Singapore?
No, actually, they're all made in America. Everything is made in America.
Mm-hmm. All right. Very good.
It's a good question.
The special is New York legend. Is there anything else you want to shill before we sign off?
I don't know. Do you have a book out? What do you have?
I got lots of books out, but yeah.
What's the new book? Or which one isn't selling well? Let's push that one.
Well, I'll push the one that has actually, yeah. Why don't I? The Politically Incorrect Guide to Capitalism. It did sell well, but it's older. But I still get checks on that one. Most of the stuff I wrote.
Let's get that back on the charts.
Yeah, let's do that, folks. It's good stuff. You would like it. My guest has been David Angelo. David, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
You've just experienced another episode of The Bob Murphy Show, the podcast promoting free markets, free minds, and grateful souls. For more information and to subscribe to this podcast, visit bobmurphyshow.com.